We're tracking this with MS Now reporters Julia Jester in Washington and Jake Traylor at the White House. Also with us, MS Now military analyst, retired Army Colonel Jack Jacobs. Julia, first with you, talk about this ongoing pursuit of this Venezuelan oil tanker and why this has dragged on now for more than a week.
Yeah, Ariel. So after the U.S. government intercepted two previous vessels, the Skipper and the Centuries, the Bella One has proven more elusive. Now, there's not much incentive for a vessel which cannot outrun the U.S. Coast Guard to disobey demands to board. However, the Bella seems to be doing just that. And we see new reporting from the New York Times that writes a bizarre odyssey began on December 21st when the Coast Guard tried to intercept the ship Bella One in the Caribbean Sea as it sailed toward Venezuela to pick up oil. American officials have not publicly explained why the Coast Guard's waiting to board the tanker, which is not capable of outrunning U.S. vessels. And now it appears to have painted a Russian flag on it. We've reached out to the Russian embassy for comment to see whether Russia might claim this, but it is a bizarre turn of events in a pursuit of a vessel that the U.S. government has not provided details on. We've been referred to the White House repeatedly. No updates there, but it's part of this larger quarantine of Venezuelan oil. The White House issued a directive to the Pentagon to essentially, for the next couple of months, really put that economic pressure on Maduro. It's not that military options are not available, but they want to shift the pressure from military actions. You've seen the strikes on vessels and even on land to this economic pressure campaign with regard to oil, Ariel.
Yeah, bizarre odyssey indeed. Colonel, tactically speaking, are you surprised Bella One has managed to evade the U.S. Coast Guard for this amount of time? And what's preventing the Coast Guard from boarding that vessel?
Well, there's nothing that prevents them from boarding the vessel. They can board it at any time. This vessel has been implicated in moving proscribed oil in the past, and it's not a Russian flagged vessel. So it's evading because the United States is letting it evade, at least for the time being, until it's clear exactly what's going to happen. Say again?
Why do you think that is? Why would the U.S. be allowing it to evade?
One of the reasons is that it wants to see what its intentions are, where it's going to head. It's unclear where it's going. It moved away from the coast towards Greenland, but at the end of the day, where it's going, nobody knows. And the Defense Department almost undoubtedly wants to, and Homeland Security wants to see where it's headed before it acts further. But if it wants to board, it can. It just wants to play out for the time being, Ariel.
So, Colonel, in your estimation, is this blockade of Venezuelan oil tankers working?
Oh, yeah, it's having a very deleterious effect on the economy. About 70% of its income has now been truncated. Things are extremely bad economically in the country. The real question is, what happens next? Does the United States expect Maria Machado to take over with the government of Venezuela deciding to just abdicate? It's unclear what kind of support she has. The only way that will happen is if the Venezuelan military gets fed up with the situation, both economically and strategically, and decides then to depose the government, and then perhaps any organization that supports Machado may be able to take over. But it's unlikely to happen over the near term. And for the time being, the government of Venezuela has the support of the military. If the United States keeps up the economic pressure, things may change.
Fascinating potential scenario there with Machado potentially taking power. But again, it may be far-fetched, at least for now. Jake, the Wall Street Journal points out that Maduro is trying to laugh off Trump's actions and shows a little sign that he's going to step down at this point. Is there a concern in the White House that all of this action could actually galvanize support for Maduro, both inside the country and with allied regimes, perhaps like Russia?
Ariel, that may very well be the concern that we are seeing from some White House officials around this, but at least publicly from President Trump, we have seen him be really consistent in his continued focus on really harnessing any part of Venezuela in this ongoing really battle that he can. And I think it's quite notable to just really mark the significance of this escalation. For months now, we have seen these dozens of attacks on these boats that the White House alleged without evidence were bringing drugs illegally into the United States. Now on land, this is a clear escalation. And as has been said, we don't quite know how far the president continues to escalate. But when it comes to the actual carrying out of this mission, it was, according to a lot of officials now, done by the CIA intentionally, covertly, so that it could be done in secrecy without some of the congressional approval that may be required otherwise. The president on his own chose to disclose that information Friday publicly in an interview. And it has been said by a lot of folks close to the White House that it is part of Trump's continued ongoing pressure campaign on Maduro.
Yeah, we have heard from experts that they could be one big psyop. Julia, what more have we learned about the U.S. drone strike inside Venezuela, allegedly attacking a port there? Has the administration commented on this yet?
The CIA has declined to comment, and the White House has not gotten back to inquiries, and every other entity keeps referring us to the White House. As Jake mentioned, the president himself announced this operation, this strike, and this is reportedly off on the coast of Venezuela, a area that Tren de Aragua, the narco-terrorist group, so-called by the Trump administration, allegedly moved ships out of. So President Trump himself said, you know, we're targeting the vessels, the ships, and now we're targeting where they come from, and we've taken it out. Well, the reality is that for every boat that's taken out, more boats can come. For every port that these drugs are leaving from, there are others. And so it's unclear whether this, campaign is going to have the desired effect. But it's worth noting that the CIA appears to have conducted this on its own. U.S. Special Operations Command said that it did not provide intelligence support for this operation. And pressed for clarity, it said that it did not provide any support, personnel, weaponry, or otherwise. And so the military is kind of taking their hands off of this particular instance. And so that might evade a little bit of that congressional oversight there, Ariel.
Okay. So, Colonel, since September, the Trump administration has killed 107 people in these boat strikes on alleged drug-ferrying boats, launched covert CIA operations inside of Venezuela, seized oil tankers, as we've seen these maritime battles underway, and, of course, escalated with that attack on a port. So, considering the vast resources deployed here, is this really hindering the drug trade as the administration seems to be pursuing? Or is this fundamentally about regime change?
It's fundamentally about regime change. We have to note that the large majority of illicit drugs that come in the United States they don't come from Venezuela, and Venezuela does not manufacture large quantities of these things. The majority illicit drugs comes to the United States through Mexico, from the Caribbean, and from the Pacific, not from Venezuela. So the conclusion one has to draw is exactly as you articulated. It's all about regime change.
So, Jake, the White House, as we've been noting, hasn't stated an end goal here, but the president has telegraphed very clearly that it's time for Maduro to go. Any sense of a plan to fill that vacuum? The colonel alluded to Machado as a possible option. Are they floating the next day scenarios there?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, Ariel, is that we really don't know how far the president is willing to go here. I think multiple times, as reporters, as just citizens that have been observing the escalation in Venezuela, there's been constant surprise at how far President Trump is willing to go when it comes to these attacks on Venezuela now on land. There's certainly likely going to be a short list that's being very, very tightly held as to who the president and who the White House wants to replace whenever we do see or eventually see Maduro step away from his role. Of course, the Nobel laureate and opposition leader Corina Machado is very likely to be the individual that the president would want to see in that role. She is very Trump-aligned, a conservative. She essentially, when she won the Nobel Peace Prize, dedicated the prize itself to the president. But in terms of the president publicly making any declaration of what he wants to see, he's been quiet on that front.